So up here. The early edition, the late edition was 88. The first edition was not.
Say something, Cindy.
Here I am.
Thank you all for coming. You're welcome. Buy the book.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay, so this is Vicinanza Studios Gallery, and I'm Faith Vicinanza, so I think you can make the connection. And so I've been here a year and a half, and I've known Cindy for a while, and when she approached me and asked if she could move her Writing Through Grief program here, I was flattered, and it's been a wonderful relationship, and I've met some wonderful people, and had a great time. And then Cindy, ever the busy woman who's always got some project or other going, has edited this recent collection, Grief Like Yours, from people she's been supporting through writing forever. And we are honored to be supporting the book launch of Grief Like Yours. Cindy will talk more about that. I'm just going to give you a few little things that you should know. So the bathroom is there. Please tune your phones to silent or off. And there are two doors. One is here and one is here. Should you need to, should you need to leave in a hurry, let's hope that doesn't happen. And I am recording. I have a YouTube channel. I put up a post every Sunday on the gallery YouTube channel. If you do not want to be recorded, you're one of the featured readers. When you get up here, you look at me and you go like this. And I will not record you because not everybody wants to be recorded. So you're not going to be forced to be recorded. And then I'm going to have to turn the fan off. So let me just say, when you leave the bathroom, please turn the light off because then I can still hear the fan. And that we don't want the fan running. And please welcome our host and entrepreneur and book editor and madam of many things, Cindy Eastman.
Thank you. I don't think I'm all those things. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Some of you are authors. Some of you are supporting authors, and some of you, I think, came because you might have some interest in this topic. I have notes. I'm not an extemporaneous speaker. But I want to say thank you to Faith. I mean, this is a beautiful space to have this here. It's her studio and gallery. There's this little donation bucket up here. That's for her gallery. So, please give freely. And I'm not going to talk too much about me or anything, but I do want to I kind of want to let you know what the day is going to look like a little bit. We're going to do readings. Many of the authors are here, and we're going to have like 2 sets. So we'll have a few people read, and then we'll take a little break because grief. How much can you hear? All like one after the other. And then we're going to read some more, and then the snacks and nibbles are out. But then at the end we have cake to celebrate. I'm not so. I gotta tell you who's here. I don't know if everybody has bought the book. This is the book. There's plenty for sale. But here's who's here. Gabby Coatsworth, Ilvi Dula, Joanne Bartholomew, Judy Gentile, Kate Meyer, Lisa Bernard, Lynn Stabeus, Marilyn, are you here? Not here. Mary Peitler, Molly Hinchman, Randy Sundell, Roberta Dolan, Roseanne Adams from Chicago. You want to get that signature. And Steve Parlato. I didn't miss anybody, did I? Nobody snuck in? Okay. Nancy McMillan was going to be here, but she became ill and she can't make it. But so those people, they're all here to read of their work. And as much as I am so proud of this book, and I'm so grateful that it's out here in the world, it wouldn't be here if it weren't for these authors. These authors are the ones who made it work. The authors are the ones who shared these like tender, sacred stories. And it was an honor to read them and to get to know everybody. Just a quick story about the reason. I'm kind of steeped in grief. Like, it's just been nonstop for years and years and years. And if you want to corner me later, I can explain more, but I won't go into it now. But there's just been a lot. So as I was kind of wading through it all, it kind of came to me that it's not just like, oh my God, I'm so sad. It's like there are very specific things that you feel and ways that it affects you depending on what your loss is. And so I thought, well, how fun. Let's do a book. And so I put a call out and I got all these people back, not just like, and it wasn't even just like Connecticut or, my writing group. It was Chicago. There's a writer from Italy. There's one of the writers is from Turkey. They're from everywhere, and it was just amazing, and they were all different, and that was what I was kind of hoping to hear from, because grief is different for everybody, and I remember one writer wrote in and said, well, I don't know, is this good enough? Is this, will this work for the book? And it was about, I think, their pet. And I said, yeah, of course, loss is loss, grief is grief. But that was another thing that made me feel like it's really important to get these stories out there, because people still don't feel like their grief is legitimate, and we have to make it more legitimate. So I had like this cap. I was like, 2,000 words, I gotta pare it down, and I got all these submissions, and so I just decided to keep all of them. I did limit it. Some people sent in one or two. There were only a handful of people who sent in a couple that I kept, both of them. But because of the topic or what they were writing about. And then maybe there were like one or two that didn't fit in like the topic. So I kept everybody. And I'm glad I did. And everybody's just been so wonderful and like collaborative. Like when we started talking about this launch, people were saying, what can I do? What can I bring? And can I show up early? And it was just really amazing. So this has been a really lovely and wonderful experience. And when I thought about a book launch for a book about grief, like, yay, cake. It may sound like I'm not taking it seriously, but I am, because I do need to celebrate the people who come forward, share their stories, and just put it out there, because telling our stories matter. So that's why we did this, and that's why they're here. And I'm not going to talk anymore. I am going to try. So I don't really know what this is going to look like. We're going to have the readers. I'm going to stop in a minute. But I think like after the first set of readers, I think if the authors, if you all want to sit over here, and then if you bought a book, you can come have them sign the book. Or here are these fancy book plates I made yesterday. So if you had a book but you didn't bring it, or if you're going to buy one later, if you want one, to buy one and send it to, if you want, get them to sign this. They'll sign this, right, everybody? Yes. Okay. So just grab one of these and have them sign this, and then you can stick it in the book and then send it to whoever, or keep it. There are also other things up here besides the donation bucket for the gallery. Just different, like there's some bookmarks and cards and things from different, some of the writers. And I think that's it. Did I cover everything? All right then. Well then, without further ado, sorry, one more thing. Does everybody who's going to read, do you have your book or a copy of what you're going to read? Do you need me to leave my book up here? Everybody's set. God, you guys are great. All right then, I'm going to have the first poet, Lynn Stobaeus, start us out.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So this poem is called Grief. I'm going to read it twice. Hope you enjoy it. Grief. It creeps in, hovers, and sometimes covers over everything. A tarpaulin that protects the bounty of the heart, calls it to rest, gives shelter. Letting the beat return, resonate inward, the tears come, the heart sweats. Rest, dear heart, recover, then return to the outer world for the time until the next winter falls. Grief. It creeps in, hovers, and sometimes covers over everything. A tarpaulin that protects the bounty of the heart. It calls it to rest and gives shelter. Letting the beat return, resonate inward. The tears come, the heart sweats. Rest, dear heart, recover. Then return to the outer world for the time until the next winter falls.
So I had Lynn's poem at the beginning of the book because I thought it was a perfect way to begin the book, and then the publisher changed it. But this is my launch. So she was first. All right. Kate. Mayer or Meyer? Mayer. I said it wrong.
That's okay.
Kate Meyer.
I pressed my knee into her chest, holding her little body into the car seat, my elbow pinning her hand so I could snap the buckle to hold her in. But while able to restrain her in case of an accident, it can't contain her rage. Over chicken nuggets or sock bombs, who knows, but she explodes like a volcanic zit, spraying everything in her way. Exhausted, I collapse in the driver's seat and buckle my own seatbelt, rest my forehead against the steering wheel. It is then a Velcro shoe flies like a missile, its tiny toddler soul leaving a footprint on the windshield before bouncing off the dash into my lap. Her rage is a siren, and people nearby take note, bending to look in the back seat, then swivel at me, questioning my maternal instinct. The mother. It's always the mother. But she isn't done yet, and I dodge her shoes, her socks, the sippy cup. She whips them at the back of my head, shrieking like a coyote circling its prey. I can't believe there's just one of her. So I crank the radio loud, then louder, until she is singing between sobs, still pissed, but starting to forget why. In the rearview mirror, her toddler head starts to bounce, melody overpowering anger, snot still streaming from her itty-bitty nose, her eyes swollen and wet. Things aren't so different now, all these decades later, when my own mother, reluctantly demoted to the backseat of her own car, violently strips off first her hat, then her gloves, and whips them into the front, aiming for my spot behind the wheel, spitting profanities. It's too fucking hot, she sees, loud enough for everyone in earshot. The Subaru she's not allowed to drive is warming up, just like her, billowing exhaust from the dragon within. It's my fucking car, Kathy. Turn off the goddamn heat. Moments earlier, she had a larger audience. hospital orderlies, nurses, other broken families leaving chemo with their own sick people. Jesus Christ, he can do it himself, my mother insists, as I gently lift my father's feet from the wheelchair footplates. Get up, Michael, get in the car, do it, now. She barks with her meanest teacher voice. I gently elbow her, like it's an accident, away from her husband, and my sister sets a pick to block her, so I can lift our dying dad out of the wheelchair and fold him into the front passenger seat, pretending all the while he's doing it himself to save his vanity and protect him from hers. My sister is here, for once, tucking him in with hand warmers and quilts, stretching the seatbelt over one shoulder, him too weak to buckle it himself, us not brave enough to do it for him. I fold his legs in front of him and push both cheeks fully on the seat, then carefully press the door shut, while my mother huffs and puffs and blows herself into the back seat, seething, slamming the door so hard it may never open again. Her incessant rage is now muffled, and I wait a beat outside and join them encased in steel, me on the outside looking in. My dad, his trembling hands against the hot air blasting from the vents, my mom behind him, firmly, steadily knocking her head against the car window, slow and steady, not like a woodpecker, but like a distant tribe's call to battle. Thump, thump, thump. And I walk slow and steady towards the driver's side, taking my time because the second the door opens, the venom will spill out like cigarette smoke, lingering long after the smoker's gone, and I will be unable to get this out of my hair. My sister hesitates too, looking at me over the roof of the car, wondering what's next. She's shocked and afraid. This was her first trip, not mine. I stare her down, the sister of mine, who lives too far away to help with the caring of our dying dad and difficult mom. And whenever it is asked, actually begged to help, she answers with a cacophony of, sure, whatever, just let me know. But I need a heads up, I have a job. I just can't leave. I'll come, you just gotta call. As long as it doesn't snow and there's no parent-teacher conferences. And it can't be this week, or report cards, or practice, or tournaments, or staff meetings. She reminds me of her vast obligations at every turn, yet remains ignorant to mine. So I don't give it a second thought. I'm so tired. I lock eyes with his sister and I scare her straight. Listen to me. When he's dead, I'm out. Inhale, exhale. I mean it. She's all yours. I am done. Nodding at our mother, struggling to take off her coat in the back seat. Get in already. Jesus Christ, why is the heat blasting? What about me? Does anyone care that I'm cooking back here? While her husband of 50 years, our dad, slumps in the front passenger seat, so much smaller than even last week, colder too, holding his giant dad hands, gray and purple from IVs and needles and blood pricks, trembling at the car vents, like he was in front of the wood stove at home, trying desperately to catch some warmth. Do you want me to drive? My sister whimpers, afraid of my flat voice and dead eyes. Listen, I'll drive home if you want me to. You can sit in the back, I'll drive. I don't answer. I get in the driver's seat, and I wipe my little 10 and 2, and my sister climbs in the back. The child locks, my mother, who just discovered the windows won't work. The child locks are on to keep our dad safe and warm, while our mother explodes in disgust, erupting over the futility of it all, spitting profanity and frustration at the back of my head. Open the goddamn windows, she screams. This is sabotage. Who do you think you are? You are no one, no one. This is my car, Kathy. And again, it is all I can do to quiet the voices. I turn the radio on, and Johnny Cash's Ring of Fire burns brighter than the sad, vehement wails in the back seat. From the corner of my eye, my dad's lips quiver into the slightest smile, and he mumbles under his breath, louder. So I turn it up. And by the time we turn the highway heading home, the music plays, the cursing subsides, his knobby fingers fall to his knees and feebly tap out the beat of the song. In the back seat, my mom presses her face against the window meant to restrain her, trying desperately to cool off, her face tight, her eyes squeezed shut, not wanting to see the road ahead.
Thank you so much. Next we have Randy. Did I pronounce your name right?
Sundell.
Sundell?
Mm-hmm.
Randy Sundell. Reconnected.
The longest chapter of my life had ended. The man I had loved and lived with for 40 years was gone, out of my reach. But was I out of his? Strange occurrences started taking place in our home immediately after Bob died. If I had been alone when I noticed these oddities, I would have been certain I was losing it. But I had witnesses. The evening of my husband's funeral, as my friend Wilhelm and I sat at my kitchen counter, I noticed bubbles moving in the unopened seltzer bottles beside us. Am I hallucinating, Wilhelm, or are the bubbles in those bottles dancing? They are, she said, glancing. What was going on? Bob had always been a big seltzer drinker. Was he toying with me by making the bubbles gyrate? Weeks before he died, Bob had asked our rabbi, what happens after death? Does there continue to be a connection with those we have left behind? Something told me I was receiving an answer to that question courtesy of my husband, and the answer was yes. Seltzer bubbles were only the beginning. We had a Keurig coffee maker that had never been programmed to turn on or off at a particular time. My routine was that when I came downstairs each morning, I'd turn the machine on, brewed a single cup, and turn the machine off. Since Bob died when I came downstairs in the morning, the light was on and the Keurig was ready to brew. Bob, are you having fun at my expense? I said aloud into the empty room. My husband loved a good practical joke. Was I the butt of one now? Afterlife Bob was only getting warmed up. His last summer with us, my husband felt cold with the air conditioner running. Though Bob wanted the thermostat set at 75 degrees, my comfort required a room temperature of 71. It was a constant negotiation between us as I covered him with a blanket. After Bob died, I had full control over the thermostat. Or so I thought. I would manually set the device to 71 degrees, but would feel the house warming sometime later. As I approached the thermostat, it read 75 degrees. This pattern continued. When I shared this conundrum with my son on one of his visits to my house, Greg stared at me as if I were certifiable. Maybe somebody programmed the thermostat, Mom. Who would have programmed our thermostat, I asked. Greg was determined to get to the bottom of this mystery. He opened the thermostat and cleared any possible memory from it. Okay, he told me. Problem solved. It wasn't. It happened again and Greg experienced it with his own eyes. I don't know what to say, Greg said, shaking his head. It's Dad, I whispered. That's crazy. I know, but isn't it just like him to do this? Perhaps Bob's most dramatic trick happened late at night when I returned home from a Broadway show in Manhattan. It was nearing midnight, so I went directly upstairs to get ready for bed. When I was under the covers and starting to drift off, I heard what sounded like a dance party downstairs. Several different voices, but no dialogue I could make out. Sleeping with the noise was impossible, and I was more than a little curious, so I decided to investigate. Tiptoeing down the stairs, I searched my brain for an explanation, but none was logical. Robbers? No, they don't arrive with a DJ. When I got to the bottom of the stairs, it was clear the sounds were coming from the open kitchen. The volume amplified as I approached a digital clock radio in the corner of my counter. As I stood before the beckoning appliance, I saw it read 12:14. My wedding anniversary was December 14. When was the last time we used that clock radio? If it had been programmed to go off after midnight, I would have heard it before. There was only one explanation that made sense, if you use the phrase made sense liberally. Standing alone in my kitchen, I grinned. Hi, honey, I said. Can I go to sleep now? Thank you.
Grief, what I've learned so far. On March 7th, 2017, we said goodbye to an amazing husband and father. Tim, the only man I ever loved and my best friend, succumbed to cancer. As cliche as it may sound, we were truly one with each other. At his memorial service, I described our love using the lyrics from a Clint Black song. The way we work together is what sets our love apart, so closely that I can't tell where I end and where you start. More than 35 years of loving this man, of being loved by this man, and in 11 quick months, he was gone. Grief and love are two of the strongest feelings we experience in life. The deeper you love, the more you grieve. What happens to those intense feelings as time passes? Grief is fluid. Initially, grief cloaked me in a dark cloud that no light could permeate. I felt as though someone was guiding me through the motions of life. It prevented me from being fully present for any event or holiday that first year. As year 2 approached, I realized that cloak was a gift. It shielded me from the reality that death is final. Tim wasn't coming back. As I became more present for those life events, I was struck each time with the reality that Tim wasn't by my side. Sometimes in the silence of the night, I would beg for him to return, just for one day, promising I would let him slip away again. During the second year, I questioned, how could I ever live life as Roberta and not Roberta and Tim? As the years pass, I'm beginning to appreciate my life as Roberta. What brought me joy in the past is reignited. I'm going places on my own, taking a few new ventures, and feeling proud that I'm able to accomplish household tasks that were once Tim's domain. Then, at the most unexpected moments, grief returns like a stubborn rainy day ache from an old injury, disguised in different forms. A dark, heavy feeling, a day when I cry for no reason at all, unprovoked feelings of anxiety or anger, an inability to concentrate or complete a thought. I rarely connect with why I'm feeling this way, and then it hits. Hello, grief. The pain can be as intense as it was that very first year, and once again, I beg for just one more day together. With time, a good cry, talking about Tim, the grief subsides, and I begin to pick up where I left off, gradually moving forward with my life. In September of 2022, our son got married. The week before the wedding, I was so happy. I was wrapped up in the excitement that comes with your child's wedding. But the day before the wedding, I awoke with a heavy feeling. I was out of sorts, not knowing what was wrong with me. Getting in my car, I felt as if someone took over the steering wheel, driving me straight to the cemetery. I sat at Tim's grave, telling him all about the wedding, his soon-to-be daughter-in-law, what I was going to wear, and how sad I was that we weren't together on this special day. I cried until there couldn't possibly be another tear in me. The time spent at the cemetery grieving freed me, though, to be present the next day, enjoying every minute of our son's wedding. Life was good again, until the next time grief showed up. Will life ever be the same after Tim's death? Certainly not. But as the years go by, I've learned to stop fighting grief, knowing it will subside. I'm more at peace, present, and able to appreciate the many blessings in my life. Love is constant. When you love someone, that love doesn't die with them. The love you felt when they were living can't be taken from you, nor does it dim or fade away. Their physical being is gone, but the light of their love shines bright. We were born to love and be loved. And if that feeling can exist within us forever, isn't that a beautiful thing? Weeks before Tim passed, when we knew death was imminent, we talked. A conversation that was wrenching at the time became a blessing in the years ahead. In our talk, we agreed that the most painful reality was that we'd never see each other again. But we knew our love would live on. We knew. And it did. And it has. And it will forever. The one thing I will never doubt, can always count on, is our love. It sustains me on the worst days when grief awakes and the pain returns. I may not be able to see or feel him by my side, but I will always be able to access that love. After these years without Tim, I've learned that just as love doesn't leave you, neither does grief. There's no magical year when the grieving ends. It settles, it goes dormant, but it never disappears. The crazy truth is, the more you loved, the more you will grieve, and yet what makes grief tolerable is the love. Tim's physical being is gone, but his love lives on. It is the beat of his heart in mine that gives me life.
So this is our last author for this set, Judith Gentile, The Storms of Grief.
The storms of grief. Grief is an autumn storm that unexpectedly rises up around you and within you. You are caught in the open with little protection, nothing but a thin windbreaker. You are soaked to the bone in sudden sorrow. Your shivering sobs are swallowed by the whipping winds of wondering why. Every time you turn your back against that wailing, wondering wind, it switches directions and assaults you once again. In self-preservation, all you can do is commit to placing one foot in front of the other in search of shelter. Somehow you know, perhaps because you've weathered similar storms, that eventually even this storm shall subside. There is a hint of hope within you. Grief is a winter blizzard of weariness. Because it has been predicted, you think you are prepared. You wish you could stay inside in the warmth and comfort of familiarity, but you know you must venture out. Trying to protect yourself from the coldness of reality, you layer on your warmest memories. You pick up the shovel of survival that seems so achingly warm this winter. With deep resignation, you sigh and step out into the stinging, frigid fears that don't seem reasonable, but still are there as an unwelcome companion. You wipe away tears of trouble that blur your vision. It is a gesture of impatience with yourself for being caught in the storm once again, unable to stem the sadness that wants to swallow you. You sink your shovel into the drifts of despair. It takes every ounce of strength to lift the shovel full of snows of struggling and dump it to the side. Your fingers ache with the frostbite of old frustrations. Slowly, with strength you didn't know you had, you keep moving forward, forming a path that perhaps could soon be snow-covered yet again. Still, you are grateful that at least for this moment, you have the courage to keep up the work that must be done. You have no choice. The path must be cleared if you are to move forward. You comfort your heart with understanding that eventually even this storm will subside. There is a hint of hope within you. Grief is a sorrowful spring storm in the midst of a season of doubt. It assaults with soul-shattering gusts that turn the umbrella of platitudes inside out. You abandon the useless instrument in despair. Rain is soon replaced with clouds of confusion descending to ground around you. Your path is almost indistinguishable in the dense fog of denial. Feeling lost in the fog, still forward you move. You approach strange yet familiar shapes that seem to symbolize security, only to discover that nothing is the same as it once was. You know that fog, when it finally lifts, you will be able to adjust to your new normal. That brings you comfort. There is a hint of hope within you. Grief is a summer thunderstorm with thoughts that crash together in shattering claps and blinding light of insights unexpected. You are overwhelmed by emotions and astonished at how raw and intense your feelings still seem. Yet you know that this type of storm will quickly pass. The sweating, sweltering, soul-soaking sadness may be cooled and slightly relieved when finally the storm subsides. If conditions are right, perhaps you can glimpse the distant rainbow that seems to promise that you won't always feel as stifled and aching as you feel right now. There is a hint of hope within you.
Could we just have another round of applause for our author? This is so amazing. You've got, isn't it? So, I know I promised an intermission, and it is coming, but I want to just check in with you all, see how you're doing. Welcome. Oh my God. My good friend whose name, Carol. Welcome, Carol. But I do want to check, it's grief. We're talking about grief. Everybody has a different experience, so I just want to check in and make sure everybody doing okay. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody want to say a thing or ask something, or are you guys just thirsty? Let's take a break. So we're going to do another set, and then afterwards we're going to, I'm going to check in with you again. That's what I do. And then we'll have cake, and you can get more signatures, and just kind of mingle and talk. And I'm going to forget to say this later. So here's what I'm going to tell you now. All the authors in this book are promoting it and sharing it, sending it to their friends, and a lot of them are writers who have other work out there. So I have to tell you, a great thing that you can do to help support authors is do like a review or a comment. Reviews are like, what? I'm not a reviewer. No, but you can comment, and you can say, this was a great book, I really liked it, I bought it for all my friends. Even if you didn't buy it for all your friends, you can say that. So you can, so please do that. I know some people just don't like doing it, and I totally get it, but it really, really is helpful. It really helps the book do well. There's like this magic number, once it gets to 50 reviews on Amazon, suddenly it shows up in different, reading lists and things. So it's really helpful if you go on, and if you're the Amazon, you can do it on different Barnes & Noble, you can go Goodreads, and I'm forgetting one. Bookshop, I don't think you can do reviews on Bookshop, but anyway, you can? Oh, cool, all right. So, to start our next set, we have Steve Arlotto.
So thank you for being here, and I think before I start, I think that we should also do a round of applause for our editor. Because she keeps saying this book would not exist without us, the writers, which of course is true, but it would also not exist without her. And thank you, Faith, for this piece of space. I was one of the authors who, when I submitted, said, I don't know if this fits your collection. And so you'll see why when I read it. It's not about losing a person. Lose things, choose things. You're on Jeopardy. The answer, photo albums. Question must be, What one thing would you save in a fire? Cliche, I know. As an author, I never expected I'd go so obvious. But then I never anticipated facing that question for real. Inches from split rail, I stare ahead. Photo albums never enter my mind. I'm stuck in observation. Smoke doesn't billow. It oozes like cottage cheese. Black cottage cheese. Voices whir, beetle wings in my ears as spectators' iPhones record the incineration of some strangers, my family's, memories. I remind myself to feel angry later. Now I just gaze, like I'm peering into an aquarium tank, an ordinary Sunday. In my young adult fiction class, we're reading Stephen King's Carrie. Destruction by fire, newly relevant. On the whiteboard, 24 hours post-blaze, I scrawl, what scares you? Define horror, classic versus personal elements. I wait, but this group's too analytical. Over insightful, they tackle fear in abstract, horrors unknown. Fishing, I ask, what about clowns? Dolls? Fear of fire? Accompanying these prompts, projections of my mother's porcelain brood, blackened, singed, my old room, childhood upended. I stammer an apology for emotional manipulation, for public grappling. A colleague reminds me, fire is cleansing. We're in a mindfulness group. She seems to read mine. I'm gnawing on this very concept. What burns away? Are family scars purged in ash? Is ancient angst as gone as the melted 50 states souvenir spoons? DC and Florida survive. As the ceramic plate that crumbles at my touch? From the curb, the house looks eye-patch blind. The plywood stamped Kapura Builders. Thoughts smoldering, I shovel char with my father, mourning his years with this house, building it, filling it, with children, with figurines and angry silence. This last decade widowed. His stone walls, his will impervious to flame, he says, pitch it all into the porch, they'll level the whole thing anyway. Heaving rubble, I choke, burnt memory chafes my lungs. Leading a discussion of Julie Otsuka's haunting novel, When the Emperor Was Divine, I sit before faux flames. Devoid of warmth, of danger, the library's plug-in fireplace crackles innocence. Students write of home and identity, how these two intertwine. One young man shares a vivid childhood memory, apartment fire. The librarian reads us back to a sunrise kitchen, father returning home through dewed grass, smelling always of smoke and ash. My niece and I trail her smartphone beam, Scully and Mulder style, room to room. We imagine sculpting debris, totems crafted of melted floor lamps, wall clocks, shattered glass. We'll likely never create these works. Still, we crave potential in this moment beneath exposed whale rib attic beams. We seek art in soaked insulation and scorched recall. Armed with a butter knife, I savage a cabinet door, desperate. But Christmas eludes me. The Mr. and Mrs. Claus salt and pepper shakers have joined the gone. The thing is, fire doesn't choose. Appetite limitless, it consumes shit and treasure with equivalent glee. Wedding dress, briefcase, those Sound of Music collector plates matter no more than the contents of the bathroom basket. Flames will feast on sticky Q-tips, then devour a wall. See, fire doesn't choose. but we do. We choose what to save. Remember the photo albums? They survived. Fire has a sense of humor, but no imagination. It left us cliches, family pictures. They reek, but remain. Even when the house is leveled, carted off in metal bins, we still get to choose. Those questions echo. What's gone? What remains? The answer's up to me, really. The clauses, even if they're seared to dust, I still have them on their tiny wooden bench next to my mother's avocado Pyrex, that baby picture of Dad. Reality blackened, gone, still mine, perfect, clean. But the arguments, the ancient accusations, those I choose to let go. See how they lift, the ashes of disappointment? Watch them sail over the split rail, wind scattered.
Thank you. I love that. When I asked the writers if they wanted to share, I gave them the option to read their piece, or if they wanted to kind of debrief the process or talk about another part of their work. And I think Roseanne Adams is going to do that for us now.
Thank you all. I'm so very happy to be here. I wanted to tell the story of how I got to be in this book. So my dear friend, Molly Henchman, who lives around this neighborhood, we've been friends for 30 years. She and I were talking about writing, as we often do. We've written some things together. I've always encouraged her beautiful writing. She said to me, you know, there's someone who's collecting pieces, and her name is Cindy, and I'll send you the information. And I thought, well, this is kind of crazy. Nothing happened that easily before. So Molly sent me the information, and she said it's about grief. And I had just finished this piece that I had written maybe a couple of years ago, but I kept going back and redoing it. And it was a piece about closing my office during COVID. So I sent the piece to Cindy, and I got an email back. Now, those of you who've submitted things before realize that even if they thought it was great, you don't get an email right away. So I got this email from this lovely person who said I've received this. I thought, wow. And then nothing happened for a while, and I stopped thinking about it. And then I'd get another email. Here's where we are in the process. And I thought, well, isn't this woman a saint? So I just kept putting it out of my mind. And then one day, this email came saying, the book is coming out. And I kept waiting for her to say, sorry, so much, but you know, we're not including your piece. I never got that notice. And then the book came. And I was so moved by the stories, the courage, the honesty. And I felt so honored to be in this club. So I want to thank you so much, and thank you, Saint Cindy.
Did you say I was a saint or insane? Just clear that. Thank you. Molly Hinchman, a good sister.
Roseanne is a good sister. She really is. We've been through a lot together, so I love to hear what she had to say. I am writing about being a sister, and you're a good sister. She's lucky to have you. Too many times have I heard that from friends. When I hear those words, I deafen myself, shunning expectations. Expectations I was not sure I could meet or that I wanted to meet. A good sister. I don't even know what that means. I swallow a lump of fear. I'm going to drown. I take a deep breath and push to exhale to drive out the demons that threaten to pull me down. You are a good sister. I walked into the ICU the morning after my little sister, Laura, had emergency surgery for a perforated bowel. Earlier in the day, my sister's partner, Jack, had called with feigned calm as he asked me to come down to their house. I'll be down in a bit. My husband and I ate our lunches, which were already prepared, ham and cheese on rye, cold, sweet grapes. The crisis might be over by the time we got there. Often Laura's medical emergencies were not emergencies. We did not hurry. When we arrived, an ambulance was already at the house. Standing over the bed where my sister arrived, an EMT commanded, "She has to go to the hospital." Laura was carried to the ambulance on a gurney, her dogs barking at the strangers who were carrying her away. The emergency rig sped through small and twisty roads, the siren announcing to our small town that a serious threat to someone's life had occurred. Late the night after, the surgeon called to tell me that he had done all he could. Her insides were a mess. There was a rock of stool that exploded in her belly. I removed more than half of her colon and attached an ostomy bag. She only has a slim chance of survival. That next morning, Laura looked like a broken porcelain doll. As if sealing a crack, her breathing tube was held by 2 large swaths of surgical tape on her sunken cheeks. Her skeletal arms were bruised by the multiple times veins had punctured her blood for blood samples. Lines of drugs and saline had been placed in a port implanted in her shoulder. Beeps. Monitors. I walked across to the window and pulled up the blinds to show the brilliant blue sky and the early morning sunshine that's shining onto her blanketed feet. A pillow was under her knees. The room had been too dark, and it was too frightening to sit in this dim light. Jack sat on one side of her bed, I on the other. As I touched her pale forehead, Jack placed his iPad on the pillow, set to play Beethoven's second movement of the Pathetique Sonata. I remember hearing my father lovingly touch each piano key of this delicate lullaby. As a little girl, I had lain in bed, ready for sleep, and listened to the plaintive melody coming up the stairs and slipping through the bottom space of my bedroom door. Can Laura hear it? Jack was certain she could. A nurse in a pink smock came in to take Laura's vitals, to fluff the pillow beneath her little head. We introduced ourselves. The nurse was somber. The playlist on the iPad moved on to another Beethoven sonata. I'm here. Jack and I are here. I lay my head down on the edge of the bed and listened to her steady breath, controlled by her breathing tube. My baby sister, I remembered when she was born. I was 7, my other sister, Kathy, was 5. Born with a birthmark on her lip, Laura had surgery to remove it. In her crib, she lay on her back with her arms bound to a board so that she could not pick up stitches like a Christ on a cross. The years passed and the baby was not so little. The patter of bare feet, a little pitcher with big ears, a singing, swinging little dervish who always had to use the John when it was time to do the dishes. She sang tunes that she had invented, melodic and witty. Our family was held together by music. Daddy practiced the violin and played opera on his hi-fi. He loved Wagner. Kathy learned to play the piano, and I struggled with my oboe, trying to coax it into making a mellow sound. In the evening, the smooth voice of Laura's cello assured everyone that all was well. Sitting at the foot of Laura's bed, I watched her covers rise and fall. And to myself, I hummed Sibelius's hymn, An Ode to Finland, Be Still My Soul. Where is Mommy? I muttered. Where did she go? She loved that Sibelius hymn. Where are you when we need you? Where are you when Laura needs you? My mother had died many years ago. The surgeon came to see Laura and introduced himself. His eyes looked sad. He pulled back her blankets to check her incisions. Once again, he told us that he had done all he could, and it was now just a matter of time. I stared at the foot of the bed, unable to meet his eyes. When I thanked him, I saw him turn and smile and point heavenward. It seemed he was a man of faith. She's a fighter. I swallowed tears and spoke words unspoken. It was my job to hold things together. Kathy and I had planned to leave for Flagstaff, Arizona to meet my niece Lisa and to explore the desert and the mountains. Our plane reservations were for that very same afternoon. I yearned to see the protected dark sky, away from the lights of progress, winking stars tossed across the unpolluted black heavens. Now I could not go. I was afraid. And I was afraid that Kathy would leave me and go off on the holiday, leaving me alone. I did not want to be responsible for Laura. In the end, Kathy couldn't go either. Lisa came to the hospital and another longtime friend, Mary, joined our vigil. We were cramped together, sitting in the chairs brought from other rooms. We were offered coffee and ginger ale or water. As if Laura weren't there, we talked about all manners of things. We shared memories of growing up, of Laura's funny antics, and of the hours she spent alone in her room, playing her cello. It was a death watch. I said to all, and to anyone who would later to myself, she's a fighter. Mary brought music to sing, songs from camp and canoeing trips. Laura had written a song. Friends are positively marvelous, but I'd forgotten and I didn't know the words. Mary brought the words and the tune, printed in a careful hand on a dirty piece of paper that had been folded many times. Kathy and I leaned over Mary to sing, each on one side. I had to stop. My voice stuck, but Kathy and Mary continued. I wondered if patients in other rooms could hear us and were comforted. Can she hear us? Yes, I calmed myself. She hears. But still, she lay corpse-like, the hum of machines and beeps, a counterpoint to our trio. I moved my chair close to Laura's bed while Jack queued up Chopin Piano Nocturne and his playlist, more music my father loved. We were soothed, and we hoped Laura was too. When we left for the night, I leaned over to kiss my baby sister's cool forehead. I love you. I caught myself. Our family seldom made such bold declarations. It was rainy the next day, but still I raised the shades. The gray light of the morning skies brought life into the room. It was too awful for the only light to be emanating from machines or startled by the neon bright overhead. The breathing tube had been removed, but still, Laura lay motionless. Is this a sign of hope? I asked the nurse. She's breathing on her own. Several days later, Laura's eyes opened and she moaned with discomfort. A nurse bounced into the room, saw Laura's eyes, and cheered in a much too cheery voice. She's in there. I knew she was there. Everyone thought she was going to die. Standing in her smock, loose pants and well-worn clogs, the nurse had just said something that none of us had said. None of us had thought Laura was going to come back to us. I wasn't sure I wanted her back. I imagined that her care would become my obligation, an obligation I felt I could not endure. With a colostomy, what was that going to mean? Kathy and I stood in the doorway whispering about a funeral. What music would Laura want? I imagined a church filled with flowers and singing. And then she was back. A relief? A weight lifted? She didn't know us. She didn't know who we were. She didn't speak. She didn't know who she was. But she was back. Her velvety brown eyes, our mother's, followed the movements of the doctors and nurses who poked and asked questions. Tears slipped from the corner of her eyes. I wiped her face and felt the pain as if it were mine. Unbearable. More days passed. She began to take food by the mouth, and Jack fed her with a spoon. One day, as he turned her head towards him to get the spoon into her mouth, as if positioning her for a shave, he quipped, "Shave and a haircut." Without a beat, Laura said, "2 bits." She spoke. Our bedside chorus began to sing to her, "Row, row, row your boat." We sang the round. As we did, she mouthed the words, and we thought we heard a faint tune joining our voices. Frere Jacques, another round. We all watched the little bird try to sing. Laura was a singer, a musician. She was the daughter my father had wanted, someone to play the piano while he fiddled with his fiddle. Although my father had a quiet voice, it was true. I still could hear his sweet baritone, a soothing voice singing sad, romantic songs. Laura's voice, also true, sang perfect duets with him. But always Laura sang. As the days passed, Laura became more alert and responsive. Our little bedside choir sang Dona nobis pacem, give us peace. Laura carried her own part. There were days when we played a version of 20 questions with her. Some of the responses were unexpected and funny. She'd make a face when we teased. Were we teasing or were we testing? Was it practice? Do you know where you live? New Hampshire. She didn't. New Jersey. She didn't. Marijuana. Marijuana? No. Do you know who this is? We asked, pointing to Jack. Of course I do. Who is it? I don't know. What's your name? She was puzzled. Didn't know. I asked the neurologist, when will she be able to regain her speech? He said it could take a few weeks, a few months, maybe never. One day, Jack played Joni Mitchell. The speaker snuggled against her pillow. I looked up from the book I was reading and watched Laura listen. Sometimes, moving her lips with Joni, she began to sing with sweet clarity. I wish I had a river I could skate away on. She sang the whole song word for word and note for note. It was as if the music sung her wish. The surgeon was at the bedside. A nurse stood in the doorway. All were mesmerized. I saw the doctor and the nurse blink as they watched Laura sing. She could sing, but still she couldn't speak a sentence or let her needs be known. Her singing told us what she wanted us to know. Day after day, I sat with her. I felt cross and testy. I could see that her recovery would be a long journey, and I didn't want to be the caretaker. I am not a caretaker. Yet here I am. I love my baby sister. You are such a good sister. She's lucky to have you. I suppose that's what it looks like to others. Maybe it's true. I care for her in ways I did not know I could.
Thank you, Molly. And now we have Lisa Bernard, Permanence of Ink.
Permanence of ink across life and death. When my husband died at the age of 36, I received a bear hug of written remembrances and condolences. Literally hundreds of detailed notes, heartfelt cards, and lengthy letters poured in from friends, family, neighbors, and his patients. Their memories and observations of Robert in all his roles and at his most vibrant are captured from many angles and chronicled lovingly for my daughters and me. Together, they are a eulogy turned eternal tribute in ink. As today would have been our 35th wedding anniversary, I am untying the bundles and leaning into the time travel, nostalgia, and celebration of his life that they unleash. Many are handwritten. Most were prepared on a manual typewriter. A few were printed from a computer. It was the late 1990s, just before the era of handheld technology that ushered in microcomputers we call cell phones. Typewriters were not yet obsolete, and PCs not yet ubiquitous. I am grateful for that. I haven't lost a single written expression of support to the black hole and fleeting nature of electronic communication. In the 25 years since Robert's death, I have dipped into this time capsule at certain milestones and inflection points in my life and those of our daughters' lives. Just recently, the beau of our firstborn asked for my blessing as he prepares to propose marriage to her. Robert's wishes for our older daughter, just a first grader when he passed, and his prayers for the appearance of a righteous man, deserving of her as a wife, were documented right there in the snippets of the dreams he spoke aloud. His fellow new fathers and confidants were so kind to record and share them with me. I channeled her vision of her, his vision of her, as a glowing bride ahead of my lunch with the winsome young man who will be her bridegroom and become my son-in-law's. And I gave him my blessing, as well as Robert's, with a full and knowing heart. In times of transition, frustration, and exhaustion that occur in family life, rereading my collection of cards, notes, and letters centers, directs, and energizes me. That period is still the foundational one, the defining one, particularly regarding our principles and lifestyle. This treasure trove of ink and the kaleidoscope of penmanship, paper, stocks, and colors call up more than memories. It grounds me and serves as a point of reference to bridge my past, present, and future. The collection provides license and compelling reasons to carry on, to move forward organically. The remembrances are a spiritual 23andMe, if you will, the DNA of the nuclear family Robert and I created, our own double helix. It's our ladder of values and the 4 rungs, one for each of us, the original 4, on which we keep our footing at each mournful twist and turn that is life after a devastating loss. To be sure, not all traditions and rituals survive generation change. But when I reread the first-hand accounts of how we lived, how we loved, and how we shared ourselves with one another and others, a reset is upon me. Perspective on what really matters and the paths and energy to move forward find me. I don't remember the eulogies delivered at Robert's funeral or any individual expressions of sympathy whispered to me during Shiva. Our children certainly don't. They were 3 and 5. Yet he is with us in spirit, always, due in no small part to this invaluable tool. This vast collection of written tributes gifted me as I became the steward of his memory. Robert's time on earth was brief, but he managed to give much to many, more than I even knew at the time. His legacy is as palpable and enduring as the papers and inks through which it was so earnestly written, sealed, and delivered. To me, for all eternity.
Thank you, Lisa. We are running just a little bit behind time, but I hope you'll stick with us. So we have 2 more readers and then cake. So it can be live, right? It's totally what that's for. Gabby Coatsworth, saying goodbye.
This is an excerpt from my memoir, and you'll catch on, I'm sure. It was time to deal with the ashes. Before Jay died, he told me he wanted what remained of him scattered at Sunset Shores, our home by the lake. I understood why he wanted to stay here. It was his heaven and he loved it. In early April, at the party we were having for him 10 days after his death, I stared out at the view. Different every day, it was still wonderful despite the couple of feet of snow that covered the whole terrace. As the last guests were leaving, Dr. Sanderson asked about burial plans. He wanted to be scattered here, I told her. Her warm grey eyes expressed concern. I don't think I heard that, she said. If I had, I'd have to tell you it's illegal. My shoulders relaxed a little. I didn't want to scatter the ashes. Visions of them blowing back in my face with a sudden gust of wind, all too likely by the lake, had been haunting me, which left me with the question of what to do with them. I had to do something memorable for the children without frightening the grandchildren. It had to be what Jay wanted and something I wouldn't ever regret. I worried at the problem for weeks while the ashes sat in a plastic bag with a zip tie inside a tasteful forest green cardboard box with Jay's name and an identifying number on it. I realized they shouldn't be buried in the plastic bag because it would take a century to biodegrade. So I carried a feather pillow and the ashes into the bathroom, offering up a silent apology to Jay in case I spilled some. With this potential disaster in mind, my fingers trembled slightly as I tried to cut the zip tie. My nail scissors weren't strong enough, so I found some office scissors in Jay's desk drawer, which seemed appropriate somehow. I made myself look at the ashes. Thank God there weren't any chunks of bone among them. I dreaded coming across a vertebra or two, but of course that wouldn't make sense. I forced myself not to think about what happened to the bigger bones. Surely if they'd been included, even ground up, there'd be more ashes than this. No matter. I decided the cushion's cotton inner bag might be featherproof, but probably not ash-proof. So I searched around for something else that would be biodegradable. Of course, a brown envelope would be perfect, and I found a new one on Jay's desk. He was making quite a contribution to this. I tipped the ashes carefully into the envelope, managing not to spill any. Then back to the desk for Scotch tape and the stapler. This package simply must not come adrift. I'd left some feathers in the cushion and now they came in handy. I filled in any spaces between the envelope and the lining with enough down to give the cushion a comfortable look. Just to be on the safe side, I stapled the inner bag too and eased the whole thing into the cover. Perfect. The men in the family, meanwhile, had been busy digging a hole outside where the morning had dawned sunny and serene. I went out to check on them and stifled a smile as I took in the solemn masculine scene before me. They were measuring depth and width and working out what to do with their problem solving, in fact. The best way for the men in my life to deal with grief. Our daughters, Amanda and Heather, with grandchildren milling around them, were in the kitchen. "Can I put in a chess piece?" asked Max, 10. "Great suggestion," I said. "I could add a backgammon piece." Amanda's suggestion was almost tentative. This was a game she'd been winning and losing with her father since she was small. Sure. She went off to find the set that was already missing a piece. Heather, her sister, had another idea. "How about Sudoku?" Oh dear, I'd given away all the books of Sudoku puzzles. Jay never bothered with them, preferring the daily challenge of those in the newspaper. The Boston Globe, much too liberal for him ever to read, was lying on the dining room table. "Cut it out of the paper," I suggested. Someone had brought a coffee cup back from Jake's. I thought about how Jay would go there every day for his favourite hazelnut version. "Why hazelnut?" I asked him years ago. "Oh, I don't like the taste of coffee," he explained. I smiled as I remembered. Adam came in from the garden trailing mud over the kitchen floor. "What about a golf tee?" With his clubs, I set my mind on something I wanted to add too. I found an ornate silver goblet, one of a pair we'd been given as a wedding present by our best man, and walked down to the shore. I filled it with some of the sand Jay had used to build the tiny beach a couple of years before, and planned to sprinkle the sand beneath the tree we were going to plant. We were as ready as we would ever be. All right, let's begin. I waited for them all to gather outside before I carried the cushion the ashes nested within out into the sunlight. They arranged the totems along the low retaining wall and then stood around the hole. Abutting it was the young tree that Jay had asked for in lieu of a memorial stone. It was a prairie fire crabapple, and I felt planting a fruit tree right here was appropriate. We were burying Jay in the plot of earth that had been his vegetable garden. He would continue to provide.
And now our final reader, Marilyn Wald, Finding Myself in Still Life.
I never considered myself a writer. I considered myself many things. And when I retired, I started to paint. And so I started to have an identity as a painter, as an artist. And I walked into a class, and Cindy was there, and I was just talking to Annie, and it was a writing class. And I said, oh, I don't know. But I said, oh, give it a try. And so before I got into the class, Annie said to me, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do in this class, or what I'm going to do. She said, well, just talk to your painting. And that started me off in writing. I know other people use prompts. I use my paintings. And I found that I learned a lot about my paintings when I wrote. People can shake their head. Okay, I'm glad that other people had that experience. I learned about my paintings, and I learned about myself. So I'm just going to read my poem. I should just tell you very quickly, because I know you want that cake. And it's a poem, so it's short. But what am I going to tell you? Oh, the painting I did during COVID over like a Zoom class. And she said, set up a still life and put a piece of fruit behind it. Well, I didn't even realize. She said, the teacher said over Zoom, that when you do that, when you put anything behind a glass, it distorts it. Did you know that? I didn't know that. So when I'm writing about the distortion. The other piece is that I write as a narrative poem. I always say that when I was in public school, I must have been sick or out of class or something, because my grammar and my punctuation, thank God for computers, that's all I can say, that helps you. So I said, okay, well, I'll write it as a poem, so you don't have to really punctuate. Okay, here it is. Finding myself in my still life, not staying still. With alarms of COVID finally turning down, I can paint again. I set up a still life, a tender tomato, directly behind a drinking glass. The tall, thirsty drinking glass looms over the small, round tomato. Something is off. I take a second look. I'm horrified as I watch the tomato interact with the glass. The tomato that was perfectly round is now erased and distorted down. I asked, what happened? The angry drinking glass sharply replies, my water drained out a long time ago. I'm all alone and the tomato doesn't help me at all. The distressed tomato replies, you're always angry with me. Nothing I ever do is good enough. Must be something wrong with me. I must be bad. I blank out. This painful conversation was all too familiar. At age 8, my father suddenly died. I survived by caring for my overwhelmed mother, who I couldn't please. I lost both parents. My unstable mother pushed away her grief. Raw rage remained, contaminating relationships, consuming all her energy. She forgot about me. My mother made it taboo, talking about our shared grief. I adjusted as a child, closing up my feelings, losing my voice, giving up myself. Pleasing was stamped into me. I learned to focus on others more than myself, hoping I would be loved, heard, and seen. I never learned what I needed and wanted to sparkle and thrive. This bad setup would not let up. It followed me into COVID, locked up at home, frightened by the unknown, No longer distracted, the floodgates opened. COVID jolted the pain from my childhood awake. At 73, I was 8 again. Feeling helpless, scared, and unprotected, all alone, held hostage in a raging world for a second time. This time through safe healing pathways of friends and families, art and storytelling, and now therapy, I am aware of the deep potholes derailing my childhood and my life. Now when I fall into those old potholes, I'm aware they don't belong on my present path. I don't give them the same power, the same space as they once had. Like the glass and tomato in my painting, my family was chipped away by grief gone wrong, leaving a big hole no one can fill. I grieve my childhood. I let go of self-blame. The bad setup finally lets up. The fog of bitterness burns off. Sweeter family memories remain. Decades of stored tears flow out, leaving peace and inner joy freed up. I go back into my painting. Thank God for my painting. My still life can't stay still. The sparkling tomato moves with confidence beyond the glass into the light, reshaped, juicy, now full of life.
And Marilyn's poem wraps up the book too, so it's appropriate that she kind of wrapped it up for us today. Thank you all so much. I mean, I could do this all afternoon, but I know you can't. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you, I said thank you for being present for these people's stories. It was just, they are really, sharing them is so brave, and I'm so grateful that you all did what you did and came today and just were here. So thank you all so much. I think we're gonna spend some time, a little bit of time here eating cake. But the authors will be here to sign books, and authors, if you don't mind, I think I'm gonna have you all, I'm gonna put a stack over here so you can sign them, because I'm gonna leave them with Faith and for the studio. So please thank the wonderful authors, and thank you, Faith. This was awesome, and thank you all for being here.